We're going to be talking about energy and specifically why now is a really good time. So sort of late spring, early summer is a good time to check your energy account, see how much you're in credit, because there's a chance that you could ask for a bit of a refund back. And I'll explain why that is. It's essentially all to do with what's called the energy cycle. Now, the energy cycle is where your energy account balance goes up and then goes down again throughout the year. And that's based on the fact that your amount of energy that you use each month fluctuates across the year. But of course, what the energy companies do is they set a fixed regular direct debit for you to pay each month, because that makes things easier for you to budget. And over the year, it should even itself out. So in order to understand how that works, I'll quickly go through that cycle. So in winter, it's cold, the heating's on full blast. You're almost certainly using more energy than you're paying for. That fixed energy amount you're paying each month, let's say it's £100, you might well be using up to £120, £150 of energy in that month. And that will happen throughout the winter months. You effectively go into energy debt. Then in summer, say June to August, your energy patterns start to shift slightly because of course you're using your heating less, you're perhaps in your house less, and of course you've got the longer days, so you're not using your lights as much. And so what will tend to happen then is you start paying down some of that debt and going into energy credit. And then spring and autumn, those are the bits in between the winter and summer cycles. These are the transition times. So in spring, your energy usage drops, so your debt stops growing, and then in autumn your energy usage starts to increase, and so that energy credit that you've built up starts to be chipped away at. So you can see it swings up and down. So how much credit is too much credit, and when should you be asking for a refund? You do need to be careful about when you started your energy account with your supplier, because if you started in that winter period, you haven't had that summer period to build up your credit. So do be careful on when you started. But a good rule of thumb, if at this time of year, around about May, June, you've got more than 1 month's fixed direct debit sitting in your account as credit, there could be an option there to ask for a refund. I personally would err on the side of caution and bump that up to 2 months, because you don't really want to be asking for money back only to then get to that winter period and then you haven't covered enough credit and you start going into more energy debt. So be careful before you sort of act on this one. Now, one thing to be mindful of is you do need to make sure that the meter readings that are being supplied to your energy supplier are accurate. So that means either you making accurate, up-to-date meter readings to ensure that everything is as it should be, or obviously if you've got a smart meter, make sure that that smart meter is providing the right readings to your energy supplier. So if you're, like I say, more than a couple of months in credit at this point, because this is where you start ramping up and building lots more credit throughout the summer, then possibly you could ask your supplier for a refund. And so it's relatively easy to contact your supplier and ask for a refund. We'll put the specific details on how to do that within the show notes. We've got an article that explains that in some detail. Now, while you are entitled to a refund, there are a few exceptional circumstances where a supplier might refuse. They need to give you a good reason as to why they've done that. And if you think that refusal is unfair, you can complain formally, first to the supplier, and then if that fails, you can take that to the Energy Ombudsman as well. Just a few quick words of warning at the end of this piece. We're moving into that summer period. Obviously, everyone's excited for the sun, but the most common reason that suppliers advise keeping the credit in your account is to cover those higher winter bills. So a supplier might deem your request for a refund unfit because of the amount of credit you've built, bearing in mind winter is coming. Also double check to see if your direct debit is actually right in the first place. If it's too low, then asking for a refund now will only lead you into trouble further down the line. Remember, estimates are not really the way to go forward on this. Make sure that the readings you're supplying or that your smart meter is given is accurate, because if it's based on estimates, then the maths all falls apart. And if you are due to switch soon, or you think you might be switching soon, I wouldn't really consider asking for a refund, because part of the switching process, your old supplier is obliged to give you a refund if you've still got a credit in your account when you switch, and it should be done automatically within 10 days of working out your final bill. So if you're switching, don't bother doing this. The money will return to you naturally anyway. So Damien, there we go. The energy cycle explained. If you're sitting on loads of credit at this time of year, that's possibly a point where you might want to ask for a bit of a refund.
I think that's a fantastic piece, Andy, because it is difficult for people to understand when they're looking at their bills whether they are in credit, but not really in credit. That makes sense. If they effectively haven't built up enough of a buffer for the winter periods in the future. And I think there's a good rule of thumb to look at this time of year, because you are going to start ramping up your buffer that you're building because you're going to use less energy in the summer. Now's the point at which you are at that stage where you're going to see that, well, the buffer you've already got in there, if it's too much, then it's unnecessary because you're going to be building on top of that. I do think that it's always good to engage with your energy bills anyway, not just talking about how much you spend, but how much you have on your account. And I find it frustrating, particularly with the energy provider that I use, that they charge you monthly but bill you quarterly. So even though I have a smart meter and I can see how much I'm spending a day, if I go into the account online, the balance that's online is not taking into account what I'm spending each day. So, for example, I'm due to come to end of a quarter in May. It's still showing a balance and it hasn't actually taken out money for the energy that I've used in April and February, for example. So that balance you're seeing there, do bear that in mind. You need to work out, is your provider doing the same as mine? And mine is the biggest in the UK, just to give you a hint. So if you are with one of the biggest providers, it may be that you have to do a bit of maths, look at what you've used, look at what your readings were and how much you've used in the last couple of months, deduct that from the amount that it's saying you've got in credit on your account, and then see, is that more than 1 or 2 months worth of my direct debits? And then you could sit there and think about, maybe it's worth getting a refund of that amount of money.